5 words that should never have to be spoken in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Sidney Crosby needs a contract. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates that I hope you'll additionally check out. The Penguins checked out yesterday, formally. They have a thing that's, depending on who you talk to, is called the locker cleanout, even though they don't really clean out their lockers. It's called exit interview day, even though they aren't doing exit interviews necessarily. Whatever it is, they're done. They were done, of course, a couple nights earlier after getting into Long Island. I spoke with a bunch of these guys on Long Island 2 nights ago, and they met again yesterday with media, some of them. And Kyle Dubas takes his turn today at 10 a.m., and then that's it. And you won't hear one thing about them for the longest time as it relates to news. There might be the occasional so-and-so has been sent to here or there, but that's it. Season over, access over. Time to start looking ahead to whatever it is that hockey fans look forward to this time of year. If you're one of those people who enjoys the playoffs, they're coming up this weekend, and bye-bye. Well, this team needs to sign its captain. I've taken a lot of stances on a lot of subjects, covering a lot of sports over a lot of years, and I'll never, ever, ever take an easier stance than, hey, get Sid signed. But you know what? Hey, do that and make that the first priority of this summer. Not just for the obvious reasons either. You know, I've made multiple references this week to Dubas and everybody involved needing to take a significant backward step to try to size up the entire scope of where this franchise is right now, where it needs to be next season, and even where it might need to be in a season or two after that. None of that is remotely possible unless you have an 87 stamped all over that planning book. Because, to repeat a familiar refrain, the reason you're doing this, for as long as he's here, is to try to get him another cup. Maybe it's not something that can be plausibly promised, well, really to anybody right now. Team hasn't even made the playoffs the past 2 years. But it also might not be plausibly promised into 2024. You don't just turn all of your fortunes around with the snap of a finger. But can you talk about doing it, I don't know, in a couple of years? Can you talk about something that you put together where you're cutting players in various forms? Obviously not talking about the NFL here. You can't cut people in the NHL. But you find ways to move them, to clear out cap space, to bring in different types of players that might be a better fit for what's needed. If you can find yourself, and I'm not going to be revisiting the Jake Gensel trade all the time, but if you can find one way or another to bring in a Michael Bunting who will help you on your top 6 and help change the dynamic of your group on the ice by actually going to the net, those are the kinds of things that you can get done. Those are little difference makers that can lead to bigger difference makers. But to do all of that in a single offseason is a bit much. You still need to have Sid and his status as the weather vane that's up there on your roof. And every time you've got doubts, every time you've got worries, or you're wondering what it is that you did, you walk outside and you look at that weather vane up there, and it's this little like metal construct of Sid taking a backhander against the Flyers. And you go, that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. We can do that while also not throwing out the figurative babies with the bathwater, meaning you're not throwing out your Braden Yeagers and your Owen Pickerings and so forth. or your draft picks so that you can get more Yeagers and Pickerings and so forth, and that you're going aggressively after the college free agents that you like so that you can find the next Drew O'Connor, you can find the next Jack St. Ivany, you can move around your goaltenders to the point where you have Yoel Blomqvist up here and Tristan Jarry somewhere else. You can do things. It can't be draconian. It can't be sweeping. But you can do things after you get Sid signed. How long? How much? You know what? Here's what Sid had to say on the subject yesterday.
I mean, obviously, I'm going to talk to Kyle and have a conversation with him. But we'll see. I think it's just it's something that I'll have conversations with him about.
And that is the very polite version of the classic Sid non-answer. He's not about to negotiate with anybody other than the Pittsburgh Penguins. He does want to talk to Dubas. He apparently, from the sound of it, wants to talk to him this summer. That makes sense. Nobody wants to see Sid go into a lame duck year. And he also, more than once, laughed off, and I mean actually laughed at the idea that he'd be hanging around for as long as Chris Letang is signed through his age 40 season. But we'll see. We'll see. What he's not going to do, and he kind of hinted at this by referring to the many nagging injuries that Letang finished this season with, by saying, hey, go over there and ask him now if he's still going to be playing when he's 40. And I mean, he's saying it in fun, but he's also Sid, and you're going to take everything that he says on the subject of his humor and really take a microscope to it. My own feel is that he's going to go for probably another 2 or 3 years. He is not the type who's going to just say, I'm just going to be a defense-only guy and I'm going to ride this contract. Come on, I can't even have this conversation with you. It's silly. He's not going to do that. He's not going to be, and look, forgive me if this sounds disrespectful right after his retirement, but the truth is the truth. He's not going to be Jeff Carter and get this wonderful contract and then just kind of ride it out, collect all the money, and then it's gone, and then he's gone, while basically killing time as a fourth-line face-off guy. That's not Sid. That's not Sid. He has his own track, his own expectations of himself, and his own standard for how he carries himself. When he's going to be done, he's going to be done. Now, that said, he also knows, and I mean knows, that he's not, and he's not close to it. He was still one of the better players in the National Hockey League this season at age 36. So pay him accordingly and then proceed. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Josh, who says, DK, I just really got into hockey this year. And even after just 15 games, I could tell that Alex Nedeljkovic should be the Penguins' starter. Why did it take them so long? The funny thing is, I don't know that they've figured that out. I did share on this show yesterday that all you were going to hear from them over these final couple of days while they're still around was that they still believe in Tristan Jarry and that Ned was the guy that they stuck with because he was playing great, whatever, the hot hand argument that all backups really, really hate when they do well. Because when they do well, they're just a hot hand. They're just on a little bit of a roll. When the starter does well, it's because that's what's expected. It's not fair. It's certainly not accurate more often than not, but that's also life in sports. Ned, of course, is about to become an unrestricted free agent. This was what Ned had to say on that subject yesterday in Cranberry.
Yeah, I had a great time. This is a great locker room. Everybody got along with everybody, and we had great chemistry on the ice. We were starting, obviously, this last month. We were playing some really great hockey, and I think that goes hand in hand with how things off the ice are going. I think if you've got like I said, good chemistry, good relationships with everybody. It's really easy to want to play for the guy next to you and have fun and come to the rink and be excited about coming to the rink. So, I'd love to come back. I'd love to be back in a Penguin sweater and pick up where we left off this year. We left off on a high note, so maybe, obviously it was a tough one last night, but like I said, we've played some good hockey lately, and it's hard to not want to come back and play with the guys that you have in this room.
I'm not about to put forth that the goaltending tandem of Ned and Jari is some elite thing in the NHL. Yeah, they started off that way. They were one of the best 3 or worst 5 tandems over the first half of the season. But as anybody can tell you, and you'll find this out yourself in following this beautiful sport, hopefully, Josh, for years to come, goaltending is always measured by what you do late. Goaltending is always measured actually by what you do in the playoffs, not even in the regular season. And it's fair to say that although Ned did do his share of carrying this team to within a day of making the playoffs, he also wasn't at his best over the final week or so, which is understandable. I mean, he was just getting thrown out there every other night. But as I see it, Kyle Dubas is put into a strange spot here where it comes to his goaltending. Because on one hand, everyone associated with running the Pittsburgh Penguins, but in particular the head coach, since he makes the call on the goaltenders, Mike Sullivan, made very, 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 very clear who his preference was. And he can't have backsies on that. This was what he had to say about his decision to ride Ned the way he did. This was yesterday.
I thought Ned played terrific down the stretch. That was one of the reasons why we chose to put him in goal. That doesn't diminish our belief in Tristan at all. When you look at the body of work that those two guys had throughout the course of the season for a significant amount of the season, their numbers were very respectable. And they gave us a chance to win on a lot of nights, both Tristan and Ned. We chose to go with what we deemed the hot hand down the stretch. That's not a slight on Tristan by any stretch. We believe that Tristan is a solid NHL goalie, and it's a credit to Ned, that he worked extremely hard and had him, and put the work in to be prepared for the opportunity when it came calling. But we believe we have a tandem that's very capable.
Sorry, Mike. We were there, man. Okay. We saw not only that you started Ned in every game that mattered, but you even started him in the one game that didn't matter a couple nights ago on Long Island, just as, I guess, some sort of tribute or nod to Ned for how he performed. You couldn't even give Jari that one. The truth, and the part that they can't say, and really shouldn't say because you don't want to devalue your own assets, is that they're stuck with Jari. They're stuck with a bad contract. They're stuck with 5 years and $26 million of that. And it's not something I don't think they're going to be able to fix. And I don't even expect them to try. Dubas just signed this contract. I mentioned this yesterday. He's not about to turn to the guys from Fenway Sports Group and say, hey, this contract I signed last summer, this wasn't so great, fellas. If you don't mind, we're going to pay somebody $2 million a year to take this contract off our hands. They're going to be like, hello? What? And it's not going to go. It's not going to go. So you have to bring Ned back because you told everybody tacitly that you prefer him to the guy that you gave all the money to. And then what ends up happening is you're going to have a cumulative spend on the goaltending position. Let's say Ned gets 3 or 4 per year over a couple of years, and he'd have every right to ask for something like that. You're now going to be putting $9, close to $10 million into that tandem. I like Ned a lot. I don't like the other guy at all. And I sure wouldn't be doing this. They need to figure out a way to move the other goaltender. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Penguins, and we're going to do another one of these on Monday.